Hamas has confirmed that it agrees to certain elements of U.S. President Donald Trump's 20-point proposal to end the war in Gaza, while insisting the key issues remain open to negotiation. Among the accepted portions are the release of Israeli hostages alive and deceased, according to Trump's exchange formula, and the relinquishing of administrative control in Gaza to a technocratic Palestinian body selected by consensus. However, Hamas stopped short of agreeing to disarmament, one of Israel's central demands, and deferred decisions on the future of Gaza and Palestinian rights, arguing these should be resolved through inclusive national dialogue and under international law. To help put this into perspective, we are joined by Global Affairs Analyst Ejike Okpa. Good evening, Mr. Ejike. All right, so what strategic objectives might Hamas be pursuing by agreeing to release hostages while simultaneously seeking changes to the U.S.-backed peace plan?
Well, I think Hamas has recognized that they don't have this staying power or the resources to prolong this conflict. So it is to their best interest, especially given the casualty that they have suffered throughout this conflict, to come to terms and say, hey, yeah, okay, let's negotiate, let's deal with the easy part, and then we get back to the hard part. Every negotiation is a give and take. So now they're willing to give up something, then they're going to ask for something in return. And this is, a commendable thing, by Trump that say, hey, we got to stop this stuff. And here are the, 20-point agenda. If they sign off on all the 20 points agenda, that is good. But it may end up being one agenda that is going to drag this on. But it's a good development that Hamas is saying, okay, we want to do this. We're going to release the hostages, dead and alive. And Israel themselves is willing to do this because nobody is pleased with what has happened in this region since, the creation of Israel and the conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis. I mean, nobody likes this. I think in the 21st century, we shouldn't have to be dealing with something like this. There's always somebody's willing to give up in order to get something else. But if you insist on your own thing that you have to have it your way, then things are not going to work.
All right, so how does Hamas's position in the negotiations reflect its internal pressures or external support?
All of the above. All of the above. There are people in their leadership that are tired of this stuff, and then you saw some of their leaders being killed in Qatar, and maybe Qatar is telling them and say, hey, we can't be playing hostage, and we can't be hosting your people anymore and exposing our own nation to national security challenges. So the pressure is coming from both sides, and they recognize, again, when you are in a fight and you don't have the resources to sustain your own fight, then you're depending on other people. A time comes when the other people that are pushing you are going to say, we're tired too, especially if those people pushing you are becoming targets themselves. So it makes sense, for them to come to table and deal with this stuff. Ego doesn't get anybody anything. When you hang on to ego, then you're going to be stubbornly stuck in something. But when you look at the damage that has happened, then you're going to say, you know what, let me give up on some of these things so that we can move on. So I'm hoping Israel wants to move on, Hamas wants to move on, but that moving on has to come to terms where, both parties don't say, okay, we are loser, you are winner. It's going to be a win-win situation for everybody. And then, you tune down on the rhetorics, and then you tune down on the ego. At the end of the day, lives are being wasted. And nobody killed comes back. And then those that are wounded are going to be carrying the scars of conflict and then live with some emotional issues going on. So can we just, like I said, in America, can we all get along? And getting along is, you don't have to love thy neighbor, but you can tolerate your neighbor. So you do your thing, they do their thing, and everybody knows the boundaries.
All right, so would you say this agreement is a one-off humanitarian concession, or could it be a stepping stone towards a broader negotiated ceasefire or even possibly a truce?
All of the above. I mean, sometimes you have to flex strength in order to get peace, and that's flexing the strength is what we say in America. Let's quit horsing around. Let's quit horsing around. Let's get to the bottom of this stuff. And sometimes you got to carry a big stick and be ready to whack somebody, and let them know, hey, if you don't get to terms with this stuff, we're going to hit you hard. And so that's what they said, you got to put the fear of God in some people, because if not, it's going to be like child's play. We are in a party and nobody's getting anything done. So I appreciate the president coming and say, hey, here's the 20 points agenda. You guys go look at it and let's deal with the ones that you're having a difficulty understanding or accepting, and maybe we could come to a compromise. It's always a compromise, but you can't just let, that part of the world has become the most conflict-ridden region. I think it's about time. When I was at Harvard, taking my graduate courses, and somebody came in and said there was a course called How to Deal with Difficult People. And I said to the professor, if you are so simplistic on how to deal with difficult people, how come Israelis and the Palestinians haven't taken up this stuff? And he paused, and he said, it's a human factor. It's a human factor. You could say all you want. If the two people in a conflict don't want to see eye to eye and come to terms with things, nothing you say in the classroom, nobody giving Nobel Peace is going to make any difference. So it's a human factor issues that are the biggest challenge to overcome. And I'm hoping that they are going to overcome this thing so that they can move ahead.
All right. So in the case that this deal collapses or is only partially implemented, what scenario should governments and global institutions be preparing for?
Well, then we go back to the drawing table. We go back to what we've already known. There'll be more killings, there'll be more damages, there'll be more terrorists, everything. Nobody uses the term freedom fighters these days. We've moved on to the phrase of or the term terrorist and terrorism. The Hamas, have a very strong belief we are fighting for our freedom, and then the Israelis said, hey, we're fighting to protect the integrity of our country. So if this thing collapses, what you're going to get is the same stuff or even worse. But I'm hoping that some progress is made. Like I said, the 20-point agenda is out there for everybody to see. What do you agree on? What you agree on, we're not going to have to talk about. Let's talk about the ones you're not going to agree on. And what do you think needs to happen in order for you to agree? And I'm sure those, what they're going to be fighting for shouldn't be more than a few of those points out of the 20. But if they say the entire thing, then they are not ready for something. So that's what, and then, when you're talking about global institution, who's that global institution? Is it the UN, or the European Union? America is still, the most powerful nation in the world, that when they decide to do certain things, it may not end the way they want it, but at least, attention is being drawn to that thing. And, Trump is the only one, who can do it, because again, he's not so much into a politician stuff. He's a businessman. He said, hey, efforts and outcome. What efforts are we going to put in order to get an outcome we want? And it's not the back and forth. Let's have resolution. Let's have a committee meeting. Let's have diplomacy. After a while, when diplomacy has failed, then you go to power. You go to force. Again, that's why I say strength can also help people to come to terms so that we can have peace. Carry the stick and let them know you're going to whack them if they don't do what you want them to do. Sometimes that makes people want to come around and say, okay, Mr. President or Mr. whomever, let's talk.
All right, so when there's no other option, you have to be tough. All right, that was Global Affairs Analyst Ejike Okpa. Thank you so much for your insights into President Donald Trump's 20-point Gaza peace plan. Thank you so much.